Blog Talk Radio.
We're gonna have a TV party tonight. Alright! We're gonna have a TV party, alright! Tonight! We've got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight. Alright! We'll pass out on the couch. Alright! Tonight! We got nothing better to do.
We might have nothing better to do, but that's all right. We're going to spend our time with you. I made a rhyme, and it wasn't time. This is your old pal, Weezy, Mr. Mark Radulich, your mandated reporter, and frankly, I can walk more than 3 steps. Any day that you can wake up under your own power is a good day, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Valentine's Day. No Marilyn Manson album dropped today. Very disappointing. But it is Valentine's Day, and we are making up for lost time. As I said, last week we missed a couple of shows because I was incapacitated, as they say. But I am back up to fighting weight, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm able to talk. A little coffee here or there, but that's all right. So we are back on track because, as I said on Facebook, as long as there is air in my lungs, there will be podcasting. God damn it, I'm bringing Jesse Starcher with me, whether he likes it or not. So welcome to TV Party tonight, Jesse Starcher.
Woo! Happy Valentine's Day, everybody out there in Radulich and Broadcasting Land. Welcome back. Mark, I know me and you talked last night, but welcome back to actual first live show since you managed to stay alive. That's... But if anybody's tuning in live and didn't catch our source material last night, this is the first time they've heard your voice since everything basically went to shit last week.
So 2 weeks ago, okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I've lost track of time here, but yes, this is, I think, the first live broadcast I've been a part of for about 2 weeks now. We missed a week ago. We were supposed to do this show. And I was in such bad shape, I couldn't get to the computer to talk. And then the next day I went in for my procedure, which was supposed to be an outpatient procedure, and it ended with me being intubated and released 3 days later. So we're going to be making up a lot of lost time between this week and next week. A couple of shows that were missed. We're making up for last week this week. We weren't supposed to do a show tonight because I was going to spend Valentine's Day with my wife, but we've already kind of had our date. You know, we had sushi on the couch, and we watched the WrestleMania Mystery Scooby-Doo episode.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, I'm not saying, like, we have a long history of watching a lot of Scooby-Doo together, but, you know, we got kids. You got to make a change. Look at the shelf and make a change. But my wife and I have a long history of getting sushi. Our first date, as a matter of fact, was at Sushi Sue. Sushi Sue, baby. New Tampa.
Sushi Sue.
She's now gone. Yep, Sushi Sue has flown the coop here in Tampa, Florida. But that was where we had our first date. Real quick on that. I was quite the Don Juan that night, Mr. Jesse Starcher. I was Mr. Romance. She leaned in after like a 2-hour dinner where we just talked and connected and really, really found each other. You know, found our soulmates in each other in that one night. She leaned in for a kiss to seal the deal, and I was like, I'm still in the middle of divorce. Back the fuck off. I gave it the cheek. I said, you're not ready for this jelly, is basically the message I gave her. This asshole married me anyway, so I feel like whatever happened, she deserves it.
She deserves it.
She went into this marriage. I mean, then our second date featured 2 other women.
And one of them was in latex.
Yeah, and one of them was latex. Yeah, hello, hi-oh. So, she married me anyway, folks.
Wonderful.
All right.
Wonderful stuff.
Anyway, we were not supposed to do a show tonight, but because of the schedule changes last week. We're doing TV Party tonight. The Metal Hammer of Doom tomorrow night will be what we're going to do anyway, which is Overkill, the grinding wheel. But a week from tomorrow night, we were supposed to review the new Marilyn Manson, which is now not dropping until June. So we'll do what we were supposed to do last week, which is my friend's band, If He Dies. So that's just a little bit of cleanup right there. Let's get to the action at hand. This TV Party tonight, Black Mirror, Season 2. And I brought on the man who demanded we talk about Black Mirror, Mr. Jesse Starcher. Now, you did. I wasn't interested in this horse shit. You said, Mr. Radulich, I have a thing for you to watch, and I said, if you must. And you said, I must. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about Season 2? You know, we decided we were going to do the whole, because you know, these are not very long series. Not like it's Arrow, where I just where over the course of my illness, I marathon 23 episodes. This is only, you know, these things are only like 3 and 4 episodes apiece. Yes, I commit.
You do, sir. That is the truth.
So
yeah,
was your
at some point,
was your intention to only do the first season, or did you want to do the whole series with me?
Oh, if you were interested in doing the whole series, I was all about it. I knew that what I wanted to do was do series 1, see if you were interested, if you liked it, and if you wanted to continue to talk about it, and then we'll go from there. But man, you know, as we go forward through here, from season 1 to season 2, just like you said, it's not something that you have. There's a daunting amount of content, and the good thing is that we're not going to keep it samey, because each episode of Black Mirror is not continuing any type of continuity from the previous one. So these are things that you could feel very comfortable with sitting down and watching one episode and getting up and then going and doing something else and not having to worry, because there's not going to be a cliffhanger. There's not going to be anything that you got to catch up on the net. There's no binging here unless you really enjoy the material at hand and the themes that they put forward. So, I mean, shoot, season 2, when you look at the wiki, which just kind of confused me, but we're going by Netflix. Season 2 has 3 episodes, but if you look at the Netflix series, which is what we're going by, they have 4. One of them is the White Christmas. The 4th and final one was apparently a special that came out in 2014. So we're going to be discussing that one tonight. But yeah, I remember when I finished season 1, I'm fairly certain that I made my way through all the episodes before I told you we need to cover them. I think this was before you had the idea of TV Party tonight. So, hey, here we are, season 2. Do you remember much of it? I know this was before your big event, so do you remember a good portion of what you watched? Yeah,
I mean, I've read through the wiki again to refresh my memory. And having read through the wiki and sort of thinking about the episodes, I actually remember what some of my initial thoughts were, so I'm ready to get into this.
Great.
Let's start with episode 1 here, To Be Right Back, which stars Can we just talk about how pretty Haley Atwell is for just a moment? Haley Atwell is so pretty. I mean, she's not like a Barbie type pretty where it's just like, okay, you look like every other big boob, blonde-haired bimbo. That's the traditional American style of pretty. Haley Atwell has haunting eyes. She has this wonderful alabaster skin. She's just so pretty, Jesse Starcher. She's dreamy. She's like, and honestly, Haley Atwell is so pretty. It's the only reason I watched Agent Carter, other than it was a Marvel series. Because I had no interest in the story they were telling, especially in season 2 when they started talking about the Black Ooze or whatever the fuck it was called. When they started getting into the magic, sort of setting up for Doctor Strange later in the year, and they moved the show from New York to Los Angeles. I mean, not that I didn't like Agent Carter season 2, I just didn't really care about the story. But I kept coming back, and and it was must-see TV for me, because Haley Atwell is so pretty.
She's got the draw power. Yeah, I didn't know that was up until right before we got on here. I looked at the wiki and I didn't realize that was who this was. I didn't realize that was Haley Atwell.
They could have filmed an hour. They could have filmed an hour of Haley Atwell eating pudding, and I don't want it.
It's the craziest Black Mirror yet.
my
it's
wife
so
is
crazy.
now learning for the first time that I have this obsession with Haley Atwell.
She's on the list.
Look her up.
But yeah, Be Right Back, man. This is one that I was like, okay, I've heard Mark Radulich say in the past many a times that he couldn't wait to download his consciousness into the net so he could live forever. Now, sir, albeit this is not an exact representation of what you wanted to do, this comes damn close.
Yeah, we need to table that discussion for White Christmas. They do
go hand in hand.
That's more of the nightmare scenario that you're bringing to my attention as a risk for wanting to download your consciousness into some sort of controlled mechanical gizmo.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of a Be Right Back featuring one of the Harry Potter kids, Domino Gleeson. Which is he? Ron? Domino Gleeson.
Is he really? No way.
Domino Gleeson, I know for a fact, is one of the Harry Potter kids.
Hold on.
I just don't remember which one he is.
I'm on.
Are you gonna look it up?
I am on. He had his breakout year in 2010 with his role in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Also in 2010, he starred along Keira Knightley, Andrew Garfield, and Never Let Me Go. I haven't seen that.
Okay, he's Bill Weasley. Okay, so he's not
Bill
wrong.
Weasley. He's one of the Weasley brothers. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the Weasley kids. I guess he's like the eldest Weasley. Is that right?
Sure.
He's also General Hux in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Ah. Very nice. Yes.
So General Hux is one of our lead characters here, and the oh-so-pretty Harry Atwell. and what this episode is about is he dies, and they take his online presence via social media. So basically they take his Twitter, they take his Instagram, his Facebook, his YouTube, and his speech patterns, his way of communicating through these various social media prisms, and using an algorithm and that raw data, they are able to reconstruct a persona that as closely resembles the real-life article as they can, as a way of people dealing with their grief.
Yeah, Haley. I was going to say, yeah, Haley and him were dating in this episode. We don't go by character names anymore. We just go by actors. I can't because I have no idea. I can't remember who they are. But they were dating and they were pretty close. They actually had moved in together. I think they were moving back into his mom's house, and then he goes to return the moving van and ends up dying. Go ahead. I know you were getting into the plot. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure, that's okay. By the way, her name is Martha. Why did you say that name? Anyway, so Haley Atwell, who plays Martha, and Bill Weasley move into this house. He goes to return the van. He dies. She's not only grieved the loss of her lover's death, she finds out she's pregnant, which is kind of a nightmare scenario. When you think about it, for a lot of women. It's like you go into wanting to bring a child into this world, you go into the partnership 9 out of 10 times. I know some women don't. But typically, you go in with the idea that you're going to have a partner there, and even before the story has begun, it's over, the partner's gone.
Yeah.
And so she's got this forthcoming baby. She's lost the love of her life. And while their relationship was not perfect, and there are little bits of detail that show, he was not as attentive maybe as he could have been. no relationship is perfect, and I think that's where a lot of the magic lies when you're really intimate with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, believe it or not. So, as a way of dealing with her grief, she's hip to this service that will take his online presence and reconstruct it into a persona for her to interact with via Messenger. That evolves into talking to him on the phone, which then evolves into uploading this presence into a virtual body. And for a while, it's like he's back in her life again.
Mm-hmm.
But she starts to realize over time that those little imperfections, those little bits of diseased air between two people, I use that phrase because that's how my lungs are being described lately.
Oh, nice. Sir, you're breathing diseased air on me. Could you please step away? I'm glad we're a few states away from each other, Mark Radulich, and we're not in the same room. You and your diseased air.
My virtual friendships are the best friendships.
Yes, sir.
Anyway. So she starts to realize that all is not right with this thing, and she realizes there's these deficits of character, and I'm really trying to stress the idea that it's the person's imperfections that makes them human, and what really draw people together. You know, you being married, you can speak to this, I think, pretty intelligently. You know, it's the idea that you know your mate better than anybody else on the planet, and you know the little stupid, gross, nonsensical, crazy things about them that nobody else could live with. But those are the things that are a part of what draws you to them.
Yeah.
And those things are missing from that persona. And it culminates with him. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the underlying themes that I kind of picked up on here with that in mind is the fact that, you know, she, even though she's not seeing these imperfections, that this perfect, the reintroduction to this person in her life, it was completely based off of everything that this guy put out there on social media. Now, me and you know that as trollish as some people want to be, or as funny as some people want to be, as nice as some people want to be, that isn't, social media is not their true identity. It's you know, it's to the 10th power, not even close to what a real person is. So this is not what happens with this guy, or when this lady decides to have this android body or whatever body shipped to her house, and the consciousness downloaded into this body, that it isn't like in this world this is something that everybody does. This is a very, very new service. This is you know, cusp, bleeding edge technology, and it's going to cost a lot of money if you want to try this, but we'll give it a shot. So when we see this happening, it's not like this is the world all over the place in this particular. This is just like 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 solid incidents throughout the whole thing. But throughout that world, it's a rare case. But anyway, yeah, the point I was trying to make is that basing it off of social media is where, as perfect as that seems, and as almost realistic as this guy seems, there's a whole part of that doesn't show up on the net, and that's probably the part that she's that's the part she notices that's missing.
Yeah, she flat out says, you know, when she walks into the cliff, she's like, if you were the real General Hux, you'd have figured this out by now.
You'd have figured out this wasn't Star Wars.
Yes. If you were the real Bill Weasley, you'd have figured out that Voldemort was a bad guy all along. No,
that's right.
You'd have figured out what was happening here. And she basically tells him jump off the cliff. And he's like, you know, and he acts like an android. He's like, well, was I not following my protocol? And then when she tells him that, you know, he'd have begged for her life, then he starts doing what she, you know, basically, if you're involved in a relationship, even the most loving, most committed relationship, there's going to be some angst, there's going to be some pullback, there's going to be some tension. Life, the most fulfilling parts of life, I believe, involve tension, whether people want to believe that or not. If life is too easy, it's unfulfilling, Melissa.
Sideways glance.
And this is why she goes to bed at 9, everybody. Anyway, and when she realizes that there is no tension here, there's no, he lives to serve. This isn't a real relationship, and he's not a real person. And it really comes to a head when she says, jump off the cliff, and then he starts begging, because now he's not even begging for his life. He's begging because that's what she wants him to do. Yeah. Yeah. So we flash forward to she's birthed the kid. The kid's like 9, 10 years old or whatever, some shit. And he's living in the attic, and she visits him and the kid visits him on the weekends. And, this has been going on for years, but it is at this moment on this day that, all these years later, that Martha has decided that she is going to allow this creature back into her life, at least on some level, and then the episode ends. As I said, when we get to White Christmas, we'll talk a little bit more about the singularity and uploading one's consciousness, because that's where, that deals with that directly. There's no consciousness to upload here. This was a creation.
This was AI.
Available data.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to touch on. I want to ask you, because I feel you're obviously somewhat schooled in being able to respond to this question. Can you maybe postulate what's going on? What is probably really wrong with this lady not being able to process her grief? Would this, by introducing this person back into her life, would that have really royally fucked up the whole grieving process?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna now. I often, because I think it's funny, will drag my wife into podcast kicking and screaming, especially if she's in the room, because it amuses me. But I'm actually going to say something very serious in front of her that we've talked about in the past, and it's become very prevalent lately with my health issues, and that is, what if I die?
Sure.
And she's talked about, not most recently. Most recently, I think there would be a different conversation, because the last time we had this conversation, we did not have children. But, even then, she acknowledged the fact that it would be difficult to grieve. It would be difficult to get over my passing, because when you find somebody that you connect with on a level that or a truly happy couple connect with, it's not that it's impossible to find it with someone else, but it's never quite the same. The very first time you shoot heroin, it's very hard to get that feeling again, no matter how much heroin you shoot, to make a comparison of sorts. So, it all comes back to heroin, Jesse Starcher.
I've heard this. I've heard that analogy before. I'm starting to worry. But
I think, as far as without getting into the technical jargon, the ability to process your grief, it's very person-centric, very individualized. We all operate on different levels of resiliency, and as my wife has said, there would be. I'm not going to get too revealing with this stuff, but there were some details that she shared with me that would help her with her grieving process, and and eventually she would have to move on, and whether or not she continued to date other people or whatever, only time could tell. But if she could create a virtual me, that would stunt that whole process. Mm-hmm. She would never really be able to move on with her life, because she created a static version of me that doesn't. I'm not the same person I was when she met me. I wasn't the same person I was 3 months after we met. So imagine, the whole concept of being in a relationship is growing with that person. And sometimes these things don't work out. People grow and they grow apart from each other. That happens. Now imagine you're growing, as you should as a human being, but you're in a relationship with an object that is static. It does not grow. It does not evolve. It does not change. It would be impossible to grieve. That's why I think this episode is so strong, is that so much of it is spent with her running around in the circle, and it's a parable about, the being stuck and not letting yourself go through that grieving process. People run away from terrible feelings. They run away from fear. They run away from shame. They run away from anxiety, depression, sadness. Mm-hmm. But I am a firm believer in you really do have to confront these things head on and deal with them. Let them wash over you like ocean water, and you'll be better off for it over time. And she does not allow that to happen, and instead she ends up in this nightmare scenario where the rest of the world actually ceases to exist for her. And then she realizes the error of her ways well after it's too late. I would have actually liked to have seen this drawn out over a couple of episodes. I feel like that chunk of time missing from the cliff to the attic would have been some real interesting stuff. I would have liked to have seen her try to reconnect with people after she had shut them out in favor of dealing with his virtual presence.
Yeah, she shut him up in the attic, and how old would you say her little girl was? Like 10, maybe 8 or 9 or something like that. So he'd been up in that attic. Was it 8? Okay, so
7. It's 7 years
7.
old.
So she shoves the android up into the attic for all that time. I would assume it went immediately to the attic or there was probably a little bit of a process to what led her to that. So I can see what you're saying about drawing that out, but it's clear that she, even in the episodes that we watched, she didn't want her sister or whoever it was, her friend or whoever, knowing that she brought in an exact replica of, her fiance or her lover. And so there's a vicious cycle where she's trying to come to the realization that her significant other has passed, and then she has this thing in front of her that looks exactly like it, and she can't tell the whole world about it either. She's got to kind of keep it secret because people are going to cast judgment. Wow, you need closure. You can't do this to yourself. That was one of the things that I think she could not. Yeah, exactly.
That's going to come up.
Yeah. I think the big thing that you'd be missing out on is definitely closure. You would not have that. At least it would be very hard to reach that point where you can say, okay, I accept the fact that, Weasley's gone. So, right. Anyway, I like this one. This was up there for me.
Yep. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. The thing about this particular podcast is we can't spend a tremendously long time even on something as succinct as this particular series because we have other stuff to talk about. So I don't want to belabor the point. This was well acted, very well done. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more on it. That's the one detriment to this particular Twilight Zone serial kind of show, which is basically if they can't get it done in 40 minutes or however long the episode is, it ain't getting done.
Yeah. But something's getting cut. You might miss some stuff, but they did a good job. Exactly.
All right, our next one is White Bear.
All right, now hold on. Before you get into it, spoiler warning, because what you'll notice is there are some twists in a lot of these. This first one we just covered, not much of a twist there. But, man, episode White Bear and White Christmas both got some twists. So everybody who hasn't had a chance to watch the episode, feel free to stop us and go do so right now and then come back if you want.
What a twist.
What a twist.
I have to say, overall, Black Mirror works better when it deals with relationships and emotion. When it just deals with Elseworld, Twilight Zone, horror type scenes, I don't think it works nearly as well. But that might just be a personal preference. And White Bear was one of those episodes.
Oh man! Now see, this is the one where I was like, Mark Radulich, he loves theme parks. He freaking works for the justice system. I mean, come on, this is the best thing ever. He's gonna love it.
I was not into it when I realized what the twist was. I think my reaction to it was just like, that was a fucking waste of an hour.
Come on.
I didn't dig it. I really didn't. Nothing about this episode was appealing to me. But let's go through the plot real quick. Basically, you have this broad who wakes up in a house, and she has no memory, and she sees pictures of a little girl. She assumes it's a daughter. She goes outside. She realizes that people are recording her with their phones, but they're not interacting with her. Then some dude takes a shot at her. She runs to a gas station. She meets up with another woman, and they start to reveal some elements of the story, which is basically there's a signal. It's turning people into zombies, and they record. And these zombies record what you're doing, but there are other people called hunters, and they'll try to kill you. And the mission objective here is to get to the White Bear Tower so they can knock out the signal and blow up the Death Star.
So wait a second. As you're going through this plot, you're not invested while you're watching this. Like, oh shit, what's going on?
No.
You're. Oh wow. Okay.
Let me. I see where you're going with that. I understand why you're like, well, really? Because at first I was. But I'll tell you why it did not keep my interest. Like I said, you have one character who she's starting to have flashes of memory recall, but not enough. And at no point does she ever make any connections. She's just a victim of circumstance. And they finally get to the tower. There's a final fight scene, and it turns out it's all a ruse. She's basically been in a play with actors that have been purposely designed to make her feel the way she made the victim of her crime feel, which she then finds out that there is a victim of a crime that she was a part of. This is basically her boyfriend kidnapped this kid, tortured and burned her, and she recorded it on her cell phone, and as a punishment, she has to relive that experience as the victim and then have her memory wiped and relive it again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, number one, I don't think that's a great way to treat people.
Justice must be served, Mark Radulich.
I don't believe in trivializing justice. And I understand the story, but you're making, I believe, light of a terrible... Let's put it this way. If someone ever tortures and burns one of my children, I don't need them to live in a perpetual play where they are the victim. I'm good with them just going to prison forever or being murdered or being killed via the death penalty. I don't need vengeance. What you're doing is by creating a situation where it's a game, basically, you're not dispensing justice. You're dispensing vengeance. This is just revenge.
Well said.
And that's not justice. We're supposed to be... I tell my children all the time, you don't do what's right just because you'll get a reward. You do what's right because it's the right thing to do, even if it doesn't work out for you. You should still do the right thing. That is what being decent is about. And I found that the theme of this whole episode was indecency. It was, this is a shit person, so we'll treat her shitty, and we'll all be shitty people and live in a shitty world. All right.
Well, okay. let me go ahead and do my best to defend. Number one, well, I think it's pretty easy to see why I enjoyed it. Number one, they throw you right into this. You're as confused as this character is on screen, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. What zombie apocalypse did she wake up in, where everybody is using these cameras to film her as she's running for her life, and there's a few people out there that kind of like have their wits about them, and one of the guys, you watch one of the guys get shot, and apparently they kill him, and she continues to run. So I'm invested. I'm like, what is going on here? So now when we get to the twist ending, when we find out that this is all a theme park. This is a Justice theme park. I think it's called White Bear Justice theme park or something like that. And I thought the ending credits were just phenomenal, where they had like what is a park ranger sort of running through all the motions for just people who are coming in to visit and watch this happen. Now, when it comes to me going, is that justice? I don't know, man. Justice and vengeance sometimes can be very hard to separate the two, because there have been plenty of times, I'm in the midst of watching The People versus OJ, and I know you've seen me post stuff about it online, and we're making our way through.
I was going to say, if I had known that we were going to be doing a TV review show in 2017, I would have waited to watch it. It's so good, and
it is.
And I remember, I don't feel like anyone else was watching it at the time that I was, but that was must-see TV for me. Mm-hmm.
We're making our way through, but I wish I could tell you how many times, my wife sat beside me and said, "Why didn't somebody just kill him?" She was just so enraged by the fact of what happened, and the fact she believes that he did it, that it felt like there were so many balls that were dropped in order to make this man serve some type of a penalty for what he did, or what we believed he did.
I'm going to stop you there, and I'm going to ask you a question. Not a question you have to answer, but it's one that I ask my wife.
Just ask me a question. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's more of I want you to repeat the question to yourself when when you or your wife or anybody else start to think about the easy answers. And that question is, what kind of world do you want to live in?
Okay. I wouldn't. It's not like I'm sitting here saying there should be white bears and theme parks, justice parks in every state. That's for sure. But
you're not going to the bank to start one.
No, I'm afraid not. What a novel idea, but I am not. They have. It was when you see somebody that's done such a horrific act, you immediately want them to suffer, and that's why I think that's kind of why I was like, all right, this is pretty neat. This is a neat concept. Instead of putting somebody to death for something like that, why not? If it can be considered, I don't know if you can consider that humane in any way, to be honest.
No, you can't. Did I lose you? Hey, I think we may have reached the portion of the show where Skype has decided to silence Jesse Starcher. Jesse, message me real quick. Let me know if you're going to dial out and call back in. But, you asked, okay, he has dropped, and I assume he will call back momentarily. It's not humane. Justice is, as somebody who works, at least on the periphery of the criminal justice system, justice needs to be a very direct thing. You committed this crime. You deserve this punishment. This is a punishment agreed upon by most parties existing within a system. The minute you start getting emotional with it, the minute you start getting, this is why fantasies like Batman and Arrow and the Punisher are exactly that. They're fantasies. Sure, it's great to fantasize about a guy dressed up in a costume, taking the law into his own hands and dispensing street justice. But imagine if we actually lived in that world. You couldn't depend. There's no way to depend on that kind of a system to create equity and fairness that allows civility. You know, for me, it's not about the short-term creation of what's going to make me feel better. It's about what's best for society. And no society based in vengeance is going to do well. Hi, Jesse.
Hey! Thank you, Blog Talk. Okay, yes, I will defer to your better judgment because, number one, you, sir, again, you are working with the Justice Department. You know more about this than I do. Us people who are sitting at our armchairs at home watching something like this are not involved in it as much as people like you, Mark. So I understand completely where you're coming from, and what you're saying is you're making a great point. I was entertained by the episode, and
Really? Why?
I liked it.
Okay, but I mean, let's move away from the philosophical and talk about craft here, because I could see where there are elements of the story that are entertaining. So I don't blame you for that.
Okay. Where
I'm struggling, and this is a craft issue, so I need you to more defend that end of it for me, because I honestly don't see it. What was interesting about that character? I read the wiki on it, and one of the reviews was like, after 20 minutes of her panting, I got kind of bored.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah. There's nothing about. First of all, she's not a character. She's just a collection of reaction. And then she's a victim. But you're supposed to not feel bad for her because she's an accomplice to a murderer. So it's like I don't get where are you supposed to put yourself in her shoes and like,
yes.
That would be shitty.
That's where I think most of the entertainment value comes from me when I'm watching shows like this. Is putting myself in their shoes. Like you wake up. Now, I didn't know. You can't. Are you going to tell me that you knew what the ending to this was before it hit? There's no way, right?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, she's confused like 90%. Well, probably close to 99% of the whole episode. Then she figures it out, and then again it resets. But yeah, a lot of when I watch a show, if I put myself in that person's shoes and I would react just the way they are reacting, that right there makes it true to me. It makes it feel like, okay, I can see where this person's coming from. I certainly wasn't going, well, what's her motivation? Well, shit, she just woke up from a damn, she just woke up. She has no idea where she's at. And all these people are just doing nothing but recording her. That would be one strange, trippy day for me. I could see it, I could see the way I would react is the same way she would. So I was entertained. It was the parts where, of course, a lot of the twist. I mean, the twist at the end, I think, made up for if I had any criticisms for it, which I can't really think of any off the top of my head. But a good twist always makes me go, oh, hell yes. Okay. All right. That's awesome. I enjoyed the twist myself. So it had two things going for it, in my opinion. What do you think?
Your main character is unsympathetic and has no character traits other than she's frightened. Your other characters are your stock typical zombie fare, and the whole thing is shit.
Oh, come on. They are supposed to act like that. They're supposed to go out there with the phones and hold them up.
Okay.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are supposed to taste like Brussels sprouts, but they still taste like shit.
All right, Mark Radulich. Didn't like White Bear. I had high hopes for this episode. You have no idea. I was like, oh, man, he's going to love it. He's going to be asking for White Bear everywhere. Nope. Negative.
Ooh.
Negative.
I feel like I've disappointed you.
Mark, it's okay. I got you to watch Black Mirror Season 2. Wait till we hit Season 3, because I think there's going to be a lot more stuff you're going to get a little. It's not bad, but it gets a little. I could see your criticism potentially happening. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jesse Starcher. I was not a fan of this episode. I thought this was a giant waste of time.
You're allowed not to like things. It's okay.
Okay.
I won't sentence you to a white bear for that.
I wake up every day hating something. All right, so this next episode is so good.
Now, here's where me and you are going to differ again then. Man, Waldo moment? All right, let's hear it.
This might as well have been called the Trump episode. This whole thing is about what if we create a character that deconstructs politicians, and then what if the person controlling that character has a crisis of conscience? What do you do? That's the whole episode. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was great. I thought the concept of deconstructing politicians was awesome and interesting, and I thought the ideas that were being bandied about between the fictional creation and the politicians were real ideas that people do talk about even now. And this was a huge part of the whole Trump thing. If you talk about like John Oliver and a lot of his shows about Trump in the last season of Last Week Tonight on HBO, he talked about the idea of Trump is a media creation that was created to garner and bring together these disaffected voices, these disenfranchised people, these uneducated ideas, and point them directly at the most likely politician to win the nomination and possibly the election, which was Hillary Clinton. And the whole concept of Trump was that he was, quote unquote, the anti-politician in a time where people had a growing distrust of politicians. And it's not like it came out of the blue. When we had the great financial crash of, I think it was 2007, 2008, what came out of that was the stimulus package, which then, now my father would disagree with some of this, but I'm trying to keep this short and not tremendously political. So for those of you with some detail on the subject, get off my dick. But the short version of this, lacking in detail, is you had the financial crash, you had the stimulus that President Obama did, and then you had the Tea Party reaction. And the Tea Party reaction was definitely one part, we're burning money, we're burning the budget, and one part, we don't trust politicians. Politicians are wrong. I'm sure there was an element of we also don't like the black guy, but whatever. That's a whole other subject. And so even before that, though, when you think about the Bush-Gore and the Bush-Kerry elections, it's not like people were saying, elect George Bush, he's the best man for the job. They said horse shit like, elect George Bush, he's the guy I'd want to have a beer with. Which makes me want to throw myself in front of a fucking train that anyone would think that way, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
John Kerry, who's a smart guy, and a talented fellow, and would just as easily have been a good president, was not seen as a good person because he was too much like a politician. If you look at the history of American elections, it's not like this is any of it's new. Tipper Canoe and Tyler too. Ad campaigns of a president drinking cider from a barrel, from a jug. He's trying to be the everyman. He's the kind of guy that I could drink a cider with. I mean, that's fucking like from the 1800s.
Yep.
You know, I mean, why is it in this country we're attracted to Yosemite Sam as a fucking, you know, as a president when those make the worst ideas for leaders? But we do. So bringing this back to the Waldo movement, that was my big thing. It was like, okay, they're dealing with all of that in this microcosm of this little election, and I thought it was great. And I love the idea that this character became so much more important than the person. And at the very end, it was so poignant that the person playing him ends up being homeless, but this character becomes like a worldwide phenomenon. He becomes Mickey Mouse, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was brilliant. I do agree with one criticism that I read on the wiki about it, which was there wasn't enough time to deal with a lot of the nuance and a lot of the detail. But other than that, I thought this was the best of the 3 episodes.
Oh, wow! This is I've seen 1, 2, and 3 seasons of Black Mirror, and this, I believe, is the worst on my list of all of them. And I'll tell you why.
Jesse likes zombies, Mark likes politics. Jesse likes
That's
zombies, right. Mark likes politics.
That's right. We're a real odd couple. Everything that you said there about the whole politics, that is very prevalent. I understood what was going on there and the point they were trying to get across. What I did not like about the episode, it just felt really unbalanced, because if they were going to go with the whole political thing, I would have liked to have seen that more at the forefront. What you have here, though, is that they focus more on, is it Jamie Salter? He's the guy that's behind Waldo. They focus more on, I mean, his depression. I think throughout the beginning of this episode, he's depressed. He's a comedian, and he's trying to get this thing off the ground, and then they come to him, and he's like, fuck, I don't want to do politics. What comedian wants to do politics, for crying out loud? And they talk him into it, and he's not happy about it whatsoever. And, of course, things start to turn. When he finally lets loose and does what, you know, every comedian should, and that's roast the shit out of what exactly the insanity that's going on in politics right now. He starts to get into a groove, and then, of course, the higher-ups come down and say, well, hey, why don't we take it over? And he's like, no, wait a second, this is my whole creative direction with this character. What I got from this was more about how Jamie's attachment to his creation got away from him. And they explored way too much of the emotional side of things for him, and how he lost that creation, to where, you know, at the end of the show, he's sleeping on the streets. You know, Waldo's up on the billboards, and this guy is suffering because he kind of walked away from it, or was pushed away from it.
See, I completely disagree with you.
I don't like that.
The exact opposite. Yeah, I completely disagree with you.
Okay.
My criticisms of the character from White Bear, where there's a lack of character, an utter lack of character. She's just a collection of reactions. With Jamie, you actually have a fleshed out character. You have someone with doubt. You have someone who has a perception of himself as less than. And he's cornered, and he makes these angry, biting comments out of anger and frustration and his own sense of self-doubt. And you can't get to the place where he has a crisis of conscience and divorces himself from the entire thing without setting any of that up. It'll come out of nowhere unless you do it the way they did it. So you couldn't have the episode without focusing on all of that interpersonal stuff that he goes through. And I love his you know, you couldn't call it a relationship. I guess you could, but his sort of aborted relationship with Chloe Perry's character, you know, who says right at the top of the episode, I'm using this. I know I can't win, but I'm using this election to further my career in the Labor Party to go on and do something better. And later on, when they're like, when she's told, like, stay away from this guy, he's going to wreck your campaign. And then he goes off on her about being a career politician and she's bullshit and everything else. And she's like, I would have come back for you. After the election, I would have had no problem with this, but you didn't even give me a chance, and you just lashed out. There's a lot of subtext there about him as a person, about his weaknesses. See, the thing with these episodes in Black Mirror, yes, they're very technology related, but if there's no characters there to tell the story and carry the tale, then all you have is the technology, and some of the technology is not that interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, like, if you're not into the political themes, I get that.
Sure.
That's kind of a I like chocolate, you like vanilla thing.
Yeah.
But to me, there's a superior craft at work here that wasn't present in the one before it. It's my opinion.
The bigger story to me was the whole, the whole obscenity of politics and how he attacked that. His struggle and where he ultimately ended up, it just fell completely flat for me. I was like, I don't care. I didn't care about this guy. That was just me. I didn't care. Okay.
No, you're allowed not to care.
There were not any zombies whatsoever in this episode.
No zombies, no Starcher.
That's right, damn it. Worst one of the whole 3 seasons. No zombies.
No Brady, no Stewie Likey. All right. We will have to agree to disagree. I thought the Waldo moment was the high point of season 2.
Very nice.
Until we get to White Christmas, which we'll talk about now.
Yes.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas with John Hamm. All right. This is a 3-part story. We have John Hamm in the first 2 stories. And then we have part 3, which is Rafe Spall and his story. I believe, Joe. Yes, okay. Joe Potter, played by Rafe Spall. And they're both in what we're presented them as they're in this remote location, and they're making Christmas dinner, and they're telling stories, and Joe is reluctant to talk, so John Hamm kind of does all the talking. And he tells the first story about how he gambled and lost it all by being somebody who, using similar technology to what we saw in The Entire History of You, he's doing, like, dating coaching.
Yeah, like Hitch. It's Will Smith and Hitch.
Yeah. So basically, through the use of Google Glass, he's able to see and communicate with this nerd who goes to a work party, and he's helping him pick up broad. And lo and behold, the guy picks up this one chick, and it's going well enough. As it turns out, though, he starts having a bit of a crisis of conscience, and he's now arguing loudly with John Hamm, but to the chick's point of view, it looks like he's talking to internal stimuli. He's hearing voices in his head.
Yeah.
And, of course, she's psychotic, as we'll find out. So she decides that she's going to poison him and then herself in a mutual suicide.
On Christmas, or at least around Christmas, because this is a Christmas party that he went to. So, a Christmas time suicide, double suicide, or at least that's what it was supposed to look like. She kind of murdered him.
So anyway, so the jig is up, and he tries to, like, throw out all of his stuff and hide everything, and his wife catches him. She freaks out, and then, like, blocks him from seeing her or the kid.
Now we gotta talk about the block, because when we say blocking, Folks, this isn't just like, hey, you go get a restraining order, he's not going to be able to show up. You can use this little device and point it at a person, much like you can on social media, and block a person so that you will not see what you can see an outline of them. They just look like a static outline. But you can't hear them. You just know they're there. They can, but you can't hear them, and nothing happens. They also, vice versa, can't see you. So that's an important part of this, because it really made me think of, like, very easily can draw parallels to social media blocking, where you completely erase somebody out of your life socially by hitting the block button on Facebook, okay? And that person can't interact with you. You can't interact with them. You guys go on about your lives. This was taking it to another level. By blocking somebody, you could pretty much just, usually you'd get, if you had an argument with your spouse, you could use it then. Be like, fuck you. I'm going to block you, and I'm going to go to bed. And then the next morning you unblock them.
That would be a nightmare.
It would not be good, as we find out.
Look, but before I had all these health problems, Melissa and I got into like a huge fight, which was stemmed by the fact that I was having health problems, and we did not realize the severity of it, and so we were sort of fighting over, she was feeling neglected, I was being selfish. This was the night that I did this was the night after I did the alternative commentary for the Pena fight and Shevchenko fight, and on UFC on Fox a couple of Saturdays ago, and she called me an asshole and she walked out of the room, and I waited a few minutes, and then I went in and I was like, let's not go to bed like this. Let's not have this end this way. Let's talk through this. I understand you're angry. I'm not happy with you either, but this isn't going to end well for either of us. And without forcing it, we forced a confrontation where we were able to work through things and eventually go back and finish watching the Royal Rumble. This was on Sunday. And if she had been able to just block me, she would have.
She ain't gonna deal with your ass tonight.
There would have been no discussion.
Yeah, it's easy to do that, and in this show, in this reality that Black Mirror is showing us here, it's a lot of people use that to their advantage. That they shouldn't even give it a thought to do that. They need to work through. Right. They need to work through their issues. So. But yeah, go ahead and continue. I interrupted you.
It's fine. It was a lot of people running from their emotions in Black Mirror, near as I can tell.
Hey, that's what technology's for.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we have like 25 minutes left. I'm going to really run through this.
Go for it.
So he loses his wife and daughter, and he ends up going into the cold blue yonder, to get away from all of his memories. But the next thing he tells him is that actually wasn't my job. My job was creating virtual assistants using your consciousness. This is what we were talking about before. This is the dream, ladies and gentlemen, turned nightmare for me. Because as my lungs fail, as I continue to cough into the microphone, because my shit's not sophisticated enough for me to quick hit a mute button while I cough. I have to turn away from the mic if possible. I dream of a world where I can upload my consciousness into a mechanical body of sorts, a synthetic body, a body that will not get cancer or sarcoidosis or some sort of lung disease, a body that will not gain weight, a body that will live ad infinitum. This is what I want. However, as this episode has teaches me, what if someone were to take exactly that, my consciousness, my virtual self, and put it in a machine that they can manipulate at will? And that's what happened.
Yeah.
I might want to rethink this whole thing.
when he's like and I don't know what you'd call it. He's kind of like a transitional assistant. I can't remember what the title was. It was for, but John Hamm's character is like this person who we're treated to that second part of the episode where they take a person, she goes under, they take out her consciousness and put it into what they call a cookie. So it's kind of like a representation. I don't know if it's a part of the brain or what exactly, or they just hook something up.
I'll just read this. Straight up. Matt creates a virtual body for Greta's digital copy and puts her in a simulated white room containing nothing but a control panel.
Oh,
Matt's job is to break the willpower of digital copies through torture. So they will submit to a life of servitude to their real counterparts. He alters the Greta cookie perception of time so it feels like 3 weeks past is a matter of seconds. She's traumatized by her solitude in the room with nothing to do. Still, she refuses to work, so Matt repeats the process and increases the perceived time to 6 months.
6 months. 6 months.
So
imagine. Yes, please.
Imagine you take Jesse Starcher's virtual consciousness, or consciousness rather, and create a copy of it. Then you create a virtual body for that consciousness. And now, by and large, it's Jesse. We have Jesse A and we have Jesse B. Okay? They are identical. They have all the love and the hate and the emotions and the memories of each other. There's no real difference, except one is the genuine article and the other is the copy. Okay? Now, imagine that copy is put in a situation where instead of having the life that you have around you, you are in a room and you are made to work this control panel for your prime self. That's what he does, okay? He takes a copy of your consciousness and makes it your servant, and that's all you do. But you are still you in that sense. So if you follow my meaning, whatever life you are living ceases to exist, and you become this slave to you.
Yeah.
And he gets compliance through isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And that isolation is called torture. That is horrifying.
I'm telling you right now, John Hamm, if we're going to talk craft, okay, again, this is probably the brightest spot in all 3 seasons, in my opinion, is John Hamm's acting and how cavalier he is. If you guys can find my Facebook page, I took a video of it from my TV just so I could put it on Facebook. How cavalier he is as he sits there, dials it up to 6 months as that girl's consciousness copy sits there in that room, and he sits there and takes one bite of toast, and the days are just spinning by on that screen until finally, boop, he hits it, and there she is. She's a frazzled mess. I mean, imagine, dude, just staying in one complete white room with a table, and you have nothing to do for 6 months. You don't get hungry. You know, there's no reason for you to eat, but you have absolutely nothing to do. And he even makes a statement, he had to find that sweet spot where, okay, we can't completely break this person to where they go insane because this is a consciousness, supposedly. So you got to take them to that right to the brink to where they're like, oh, I'll fucking do anything you say. Please, just give me something to do. And that was his job. Was basically to break people. But he was also a people person. That's the other part from part 1, that introduction where he's coaching those people along to find, a date or something like that. So he's showing you in these first 2 parts of this episode his backstory, number 1, and where he's coming from. Now that's important as we go into part 3, where we go back to the interaction between him and Joe.
Yeah. So our last story, in a nutshell, is you have Joe. He's with Beth. Beth turns out to be pregnant, but Beth reveals that she doesn't want the baby. they get into a fight. He calls her terrible things and says terrible things to her. And then she blocks him and takes off and never forgives him. She ends up not aborting the baby, she ends up having the child, and he ends up basically like stalking this family for years. I think she eventually dies, and then he finally, and so the block, which blocked him from seeing the child as well, the block disappears, so he's able to finally see his daughter. Turns out his daughter's a Chinese Chinaman, and that's when he. And that's when
we have no class. No class here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
So, turns out it's not his daughter.
Yeah, man, that was. I remember when she turned around, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Because we're introduced to her friends, throughout that episode, and one of them is an Asian man who clearly she slept with, and that was the whole reason she wanted the baby aborted, but did not go through with it. So. Again, not dealing with your problems. She blocked them and never told them. Yeah.
So he freaks out. He tries to talk to the grandfather. The grandfather's like, "I burned all your letters." So he fucking clocks him with a snow globe, kills him. And then he goes on the run until he's caught by the police. And in our final act here, what weaves it all together is that they made a cookie, like they did for Greta in the second story rather. They made a cookie of him and his virtual world. Instead of a white room with a desk, his virtual room is this isolated lab in the snow that they've been having Christmas dinner in for the whole episode. And excuse me. Long story short, he basically admits to killing the dad, the grandfather. All the details of this sordid affair come out.
Yeah,
and
the kid.
It's revealed.
The kid ends up walking out into the snow after dropping a Christmas present off right there to her dead grandfather, and then dies 10 feet away from the house.
Yeah, so basically, he's up for double murder.
Yeah, and
which he admits to.
What we find out that the whole purpose of making the cookie was because he wasn't saying anything in real life. It was This was the way they were able to garner his confession without even having to talk to him face to face.
Right.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it's also illegal. You can't. Right now, that's not legal. The way they did that,
because it's not the real person.
You can't manipulate a confession out of somebody. A confession must be given a sound.
Oh, you're talking about the method. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Maybe in years to come, if that becomes a reality, they can look back on it and go, well, is it really manipulation? Who the fuck knows? But
now, are you saying that's law here? Now, remember, this is taking place over in good old jolly England.
It might be different over there. I don't know. I'm not a legal scholar, especially in British.
You make women
British
holler.
Law. Exactly. All right. So long story short, as penance for his original sin of getting the one kid killed, John Hamm concocts this whole elaborate scheme to get this guy to confess, which he does. So they're like, okay, well then we're not going to hold you up for the murder of this kid, but you're still a sex offender. So you're not going to be allowed to interact with humanity. And basically, the world sees him red. Basically, it's a dual block. So where he can't have any interaction with any human being, but at least he can walk free. And then the other guy is going away to prison for life. And that's how the episode ends.
Who's got the worst end of that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Fucking Joe is trapped in his cookie listening to the, what's the name of the song? I wish it would be Christmas every day.
Oh, yeah. And it is. Every minute.
Yeah. So he breaks the. That's when he realizes that he's in a virtual world.
Oh.
He breaks the radio. Yeah, I wish it would be Christmas every day. He breaks the radio and it just gets louder every time he breaks it. I really liked this episode. I feel like I'm dying again. I promise you I'm not, though.
Please don't.
A lot of talk built with a lot of saliva. Gross. Anywho, I like this episode a lot. I don't have really any problems with it. I mean, as we've been talking about some of the issues with the episodes, I think, in general. But overall, I think Black Mirror works the best, one, when it deals with relationships, and two, when the technology itself is just a nightmare. And when you do both effectively and you tell poignant stories of this, I mean, the whole point of Black Mirror is technology run amok. But it's toothless if you don't have people you care about telling you the stories. And in this particular case, you feel somewhat bad for John Hamm, but you can see where people would judge him harshly for what he was doing.
He doesn't deserve to have that. I don't know. I don't think he deserved to be red blocked or whatever they call it. Certainly for what he did. I mean, but again.
Yeah, I think the point they were telling. I mean, they were saying he was like a peeping Tom, and I think the point of it was, don't use this technology to invade other people's privacy.
Okay. And so by doing that, they made sure that shit ain't gonna happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
I see that. Okay. Now, let me just real quick. I just want to go ahead and put this out there. John Hamm is on my radar because I absolutely love the way he acted in this. And the other guy wasn't so bad either. The guy who played Joe, I don't know who that was. I don't think he's some spectacular breakout actor or anything. But I'll tell you right now, when he started crying and I felt, man, I was like, damn. As for, I think this might be one of the, out of all three series, White Christmas may be up there. Top three, maybe number one.
Okay. The last thing that was of any big deal that this guy was in, Mr. Rafe Spall, he's done a few things. He was in the BFG. He was Mr. Tibbs. He was in The Big Short, for which he was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award. He was in The F Word, The World's End.
Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz.
Yep. Prometheus. He was in Grindhouse. You mentioned already Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And he's been in a bunch of television shows. He's in Sons of Liberty. So, yeah, I mean, he's known. Something called
Interesting.
Cracker. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, do you have anything else you want to say about this final episode before we move on to closing thoughts on season 2?
Yeah. I thought this was a great way to sort of sum up the season. Like when we did the first season, it was just these 3 disconnected episodes. It was fine, but there wasn't anything really tying it together. I thought doing the Christmas episode as sort of a special season finale, in a sort, in a way, ties a lot of the overarching themes of Black Mirror together, because there's obviously an agenda with the show. And I thought White Christmas was the best element of Black Mirror, and it dealt away with some of the more annoying parts of it. The kinds of things we discussed in our likes and dislikes of White Bear and the Waldo moment. So the only thing that it was missing was Haley Atwell.
Hubba hubba.
Exactly. All right, man. Final thoughts. Go.
Man. Season 2. I enjoyed it. I mean, aside from the fact of having the least liked episode of the whole series in there, I really enjoyed White Bear. Be Right Back. It made you think, and White Christmas was a tremendous part. I think one of the best episodes we'll see, even as we go into season 3. So, I appreciate you sitting down. And again, did you have to turn subtitles on?
No.
Okay.
So I was sick.
You're a better man than I.
I was definitely like in the bed, just like I can't move. Gonna watch Black Mirror. Now, just looking at the calendar, it's gonna be a while before we're able to finish this up. Next week, we've got Chef's Table, which I have confirmed my guest Mark Ross, which I believe is the brother of someone I went to high school with, who worked in the cooking industry. We'll be on to discuss Chef's Table season 1. Actually, I think season 3 just dropped. And then Pat's going to be on the 28th to talk first season of Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. And then we're into the movie season. We're into March, and we'll have Logan, Kong, Skull Island, Beauty and the Beast, Power Rangers. I will not be around on the 4th of April because I will be at SmackDown, but Robert Winfrey is going to get some of the guys together, and they're going to talk WrestleMania weekend. And then there's The Crown, The Fate of the Furious, Roman Empire, The Powerpuff Girls Season 1, Guardians of the Galaxy, King Arthur, Alien Covenant, Pirates of the Caribbean, Wonder Woman, The Mummy, Cars 3, Transformers, Despicable Me, Spider-Man, Planet of the Apes, and then I'm on vacation. So I actually think, now that I'm looking at this, you and I need to record between now and July 25th.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually going to put this on the calendar. We need to pre-record Black Mirror Season 3, put it in the can, and we'll play it on the weekend, on the week I'm going to be gone, which is July 25th.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. We'll get that scheduled there. Season 3 having 6 episodes, and you'll see similar to what we just saw in Season 2, where the final episode of Season 3 is an hour and a half long, so it's almost a movie in itself. So be prepared when you jump into those. That final one is a little bit longer than the rest, but it's the concept. It'll be fun to talk about.
All right, it's on the calendar now. It's a TV party tonight, July 25th, Black Mirror Season 3 pre-recorded. So we'll get that done, me and you, sometime between now and July, and then, we'll throw it up on the network, in its non-raw form, July 25th.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right, that's how we're going to do that. In the meantime, like I said, tomorrow night, tomorrow night on the network, we've got the Metal Hammer of Doom after a week break. The last time we did a show was February 1st. We did Creator, Gods of Violence.
Tremendous album.
We're continuing with thrash here. The next big 4 of thrash, Overkill, The Grinding Wheel. Very good album. Very excited to talk about it. This Thursday is On Trial, Resident Evil. I'll be defending it. And then this coming Monday, the 20th, now it's already in the can on YouTube, but Jesse will put up a finished version of our discussion of Batman 66 on source material. And then, as I said, next week, a week from tonight, our TV party will be Chef's Table Season 1. We will, on the Metal Hammer of Doom, the following Wednesday, the 22nd, we will look at If He Dies, Beneath the Waves, which is my buddy's band. And then our second February episode of On Trial, of course, the celebration of Black History Month, Catwoman.
Ooh.
So,
I think I'm.
And we lost Jesse again. Jesse, quick, dial back in. So you can do your plugs, bud. That's really it, though. That's all I've got for now. I'm hopefully not going to miss any more shows. As I said, while I'm waiting for him to come back, as I said, the 28th is Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. It's going to do Season 1 for now. And then Steel Panther, Lower the Bar. And then because Robert Winfrey made me, we're going to do Ink. We were supposed to do Your Barbarian from some such thing, but that got missed because I'm sick. And I missed the show. So that's just put off indefinitely. But I didn't want to move around. I didn't want to move the calendar around too much. So I had scheduled Robert to come on and we'll talk about ink. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, Friday, March 3rd, is a whole discussion that's going to take place among those comic folk talking about Wolverine, and we'll get into announcing Wolverine Week on that very same show. And that'll be Friday, March 3rd, is when that will air on the network. All right, Jesse, go ahead.
My plugging stuff now.
Yes,
we're at that. We are at that point in the show. The only thing I have to say, Mark already mentioned our Batman 66 that's coming up, Volume 1. So keep an eye out for that next Monday. Make sure to go give the Radulich and Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. A lot of great stuff there in the can. And that's all I have, man. I appreciate you talking Black Mirror Season 2. Can't wait to talk Season 3 with you.
Oh, real quick, we have a new show on the network. It'll come up when there's space in the schedule. We are in partnership with Stuart Lang and his FPG News, which was brought to me from Sean Comer, who's been working with them. And they started a gaming podcast that's going to be syndicated here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. I believe it's called Press Play. Is that the name of it?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the first episode's up. It's about 25 minutes long. Give it a listen. Gaming podcast. We've never done any gaming here before. We've touched on it with Ghostbusters and Assassin's Creed, but we've never really committed to doing gaming podcasts because I'm not a big gamer. You know, like I think the last two games I played were Angry Birds and Rock Band on Guitar Hero on the Apple TV. So, not a gamer. So it's just not something I put a lot of energy into. But I was approached about, doing some cross-promoting with Stuart, and I said, okay, if we're going to do that, then I need some content from you that I don't have on the network. So he did a gaming podcast, and we'll get those up as he produces them. So give it a listen. Stuart's a good guy. He's dabbled in Blog Talk Radio before. Him and the other two United Kingdom fellas used to do a wrestling podcast. I just think he had some technical issues back then. I think he was doing it off of his iPad, and a tin cup and a string. So I don't know how good the sound is. I haven't listened to it yet, but you should. So definitely give them a call. And Sean's a great guy. We've been working together for a long time, and this is something that he's very passionate about. So go ahead and check out FPG News. Check out the Press Play podcast. And I think that's it for now. Jesse, thank you for listening to me prattle on endlessly about television reviews and crafts and whatnot. I certainly appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
And with that said, be well, be safe, and behave.